to our sponsors, the organizers, and the partners. As we move on to our second session, when we're doing our round of introductions, when we started, I remember it was, oh, this is not going to protest it. I don't know if you can remember the names. There is, maybe I should shoot them. Anyway, but I'll still mention it. We were talking about opportunities in STEM, right? And when we're looking at opportunities, there are ladies, the lady was talking about not knowing that there are these opportunities, so they are not able to study about them. And so I'd like to invite our second speaker. And our second speaker, she's going to be telling us more about the opportunities that are available to women in STEM, in the energy sector. My dear elegant ladies, I want to welcome our second speaker, who is Madam Engineer Elizabeth Robo. She is a force of nature. She is passionate and she leads a technically strong team of oil and gas professionals. She is the founder and CEO of Thermo Oil Field Services. She has a strong international experience in the oil and gas sector, that is engineering, operations, business development, and management. She has excellent business development skills. She is an out-of-the-box thinker, an avid presenter on the international stage, a strong advocate for women in leadership roles, and one of her main passions. I know these women talking about you either get out with network mentors. So here it is. One of her main passions is to mentor the younger generation. Please help me welcome Engineer Elizabeth Robo to the stage. Thank you.
Yes. I just wanted first of all to commend Dr. Wala. I mean, her presentation was amazing. As a woman who's an entrepreneur, I felt that she was talking to me about my journey in entrepreneurship. But before I start, I want to tell you about a very interesting lady who passed on. And her name is Madeleine Albright. For those of you who are younger, you may not know who she was. She was the first woman Secretary of State in the United States. And to get to where she came, to get to where she got to, she was actually a daughter of Czech refugees who came to America. She studied and became who she became. She died last year. But before she died, there was a quote that there's a quote that Madeleine, or something that Madeleine said that people were rather shocked. And I'll read it. There is a special place in hell for women who do not help other women. There is a special place in hell for women who do not help other women. And this was said during the time of Hillary Clinton, when Hillary Clinton was running for the presidency of the United States. And the US is also my second home, that's where I came from. And so some women were shocked, men were very shocked, and other women applauded her. And I think this is a very vital statement, and I think this is why my fellow speakers are here. Not that we want to go to hell, but we realize where we are and how we got there. Many of us didn't have women to bring us to where we were. But I think I would comfortably say that I think all of us said that one day when we had that opportunity, we'd want to mentor other women, to let them know that there are opportunities in the energy business. So let me just say a little bit about me, and then that may add some context. So I'm an engineer by training. I came out of Canada. I always wanted to be a doctor, like all of us. Always wanted to be a doctor. But ended up through a professor, actually moved me towards the environmental side. And I thought, well, I don't want to do agriculture. My dad's an agriculturalist. It didn't seem very sexy. And then he said, well, why didn't you do engineering? I thought, okay, at least with engineering I can get some money. You know, we're all going to be just engineers. And during that time, and this was East Coast Canada, they had discovered massive deposits of oil and gas. And at that time, my university did not have a petroleum engineering department. But I was very, very fortunate in that I interned with one of the largest consultancy companies, SNC-Lavalin. And SNC-Lavalin introduced me to oil and gas, not knowing that this would actually be my, my forte. So when I decided to go into the oil and gas, I was actually in Houston. I'd been given an opportunity through an internship that I had with the Ministry of Petroleum. And again, the head, I would call it the deputy minister, I was a foreign student. He saw something about me. There was something that he liked about me and gave me this opportunity, and he flew me down to Houston to look at petrochemical plants. I was involved in a lot of very high-level discussions when they were talking about building some huge petrochemical plants in Halifax. Now I'm sitting there as a young engineer thinking, oh my God, I'm not even a Canadian. I mean, why are they allowing me to do all this? Okay, my family also went through university in Canada. But this is just one of these things I always say it's God. God kind of paves the way for you. And I ended up in Houston. And I ended up in a career called Oilfield Services. I had no idea what oilfield services was, because just prior to entering the oilfield services, I was working for NASA. But not NASA, when you think of, with the big space station. I was working in the educational department. But I've had easy access to all these astronauts. And I thought, oh my God, forget oil, I'm going into NASA proper. But the only problem was I wasn't an American citizen. So you could only reach a certain level. And one level I wanted to be was what basically was almost like a CAPCOM, communications with the astronauts, especially when they're preparing and going up into space. And my boss then was Canadian, and I said, oh my goodness, how long will it take me to be able to reach in an upper echelon, a good echelon within NASA? So I decided, you know what? I needed to go back into the oil and gas. So my first job was with a company called PJ Services. And I entered into their marketing division. I was there for 3 years. And this was the best thing for me. I'm an engineer in marketing, looking at the US, Mexico market, and working extensively with senior management. So it gave me a really, really broad perspective of the oil and gas and what oilfield services companies do, and what oilfield services companies do with the workforce of the industry. So let me bring it back to home. When you look at Tullow Oil, everyone says Tullow Oil drills. No, they don't. They don't do the drilling. It is the oilfield service companies that come and bring the drill, the rigs, and bring all the technical expertise that comes with it. So we're really very technically, we lean very heavily on technical, and very heavily on equipment, and very high capex that's involved. So that was the beginning of my journey. I then decided I wanted to go into sales because there were no women. And definitely no people that looked like me. And the boss then for USA looked at me and he said, Elizabeth, no, I'm not going to take you. You need to go into the field. I said, what? What do you mean? I'm going to lose 5 years of my time going to the field? By that time, who knows where I'd be in sales? Now, this is a man who came out of the field. And in the oil and gas sector in particular, field work is a must. It's like medicine, you have to do certain things to be a doctor. So I went back to my office saying, oh, is this man? Oh, I hate this America. Oh, blah, blah, blah. And believe me, I had a beautiful office. Everything was wonderful. I could have stayed where I was going to stay. But what irked me, what made me take that leap was every time I went to meetings, especially with the sales engineer, they would always talk down at me. They would always talk down to me, sorry. And I'd have to say, I have an engineering degree out of Canada. And they were like, oh, so what are you doing in marketing? Come and join us. So I got really irritated. Anyway, long story short, I went through the company's engineering training program and ended up coming out as or training as a hydraulic fracture engineer. For those who may not know what that is, basically what we do, we pump fluids, modified fluids, down into the wellbore in great depths, and we crack rock. So we crack rock in order to enable the hydrocarbons to flow, to enable them to flow easily and come up. So I did that onshore and I did that offshore. So I worked offshore Gulf of Mexico, I worked offshore West Africa, I worked offshore Tunisia, I lived in Scotland, and I was one of the few, if not only, black woman at the time, African, doing what I was doing in the company. So I was well known, but they always used to be like, who is this African or black woman running around in the oil fields of Texas? That was my training ground. So for 3 years, I then developed from a field engineer and jumped district engineer and became a region engineer where I was based in Scotland. And as I said, I started working and heading or overseeing multi-million-dollar operations. There was only one other Kenyan lady who works for Total in Uganda. She's Kenyan. We were the only 2 Kenyans doing what we were doing, but quietly doing it. But in my mind, I always wanted to come back home. I just had this feeling I'm going to end up home. How, I don't know. So basically, I was out for 16 years, traversing the world, making money for my company, and when the opportunity came, I ended up in Uganda, where Tullow Oil was doing exploration. And now I decided I'd had enough of engineering. Let me go into the fun stuff, which is business development. Because I'm very, right brain? No, left brain? Yeah, left brain. I'm very artsy, I like to talk and all that stuff. I got tired of looking at formulas. But what I had experienced in the field was very important because why? When I went into a meeting, I could speak with authority. Okay? And so that was very important for me. So I came to Uganda. I worked my way up to Eastern Africa, ended up in Nairobi in 2015, and then I got a call from the vice president of then Weatherford. And Weatherford was one of the big companies in Kenya and number 4 in the world in the oil field service companies. And he called me and he said, we would like to talk to you. So we'd like to offer you the position of country manager for Kenya. And now in my company, which is like over 100 years old, like children, they've never had an African black woman in sub-Saharan Africa run any division, or rather, should I say, any country or any region. So I took it. Why? Because I learned, like, man, you don't have to tick all the boxes. I was like, you know what? That's a challenge. If I can tick all the boxes, why do I need to go there? So I took that challenge. And within 6 months, they gave me regional head of East Africa. That was from Mozambique all the way to, from Ethiopia all the way to Mozambique. And I was in charge of all the drilling operations within Weatherford. Very fun. Very fun time and very difficult time because the oil price started falling in 2015. So what was I doing? I was busy closing bases, getting rid of staff. Started off with expatriates, but I made sure when it came to our East African staff, I was very, very single focused that I wanted my East African staff to be able to get opportunities. So I started sending guys and girls, when I could get girls, out into the field, send them to Mozambique, send them to Tanzania, send them to Uganda, looking at different projects. I was giving them opportunities. I called them all in and I said, guys, this is your time. Get facts have left. It is now your time. You come in and make use of these are the opportunities. Okay? These opportunities were not being given to them as much as they should have, and now this is your opportunity. So there were some who were like, okay, and there were many, many who took the opportunities, and many of them are working overseas in other companies. So this time was now my own growth. I started feeling very antsy because I was reaching now the end of I was here as an expatriate. I was reaching the end of my time. And one of the opportunities was to head back to Houston or to go to Asia. And I said, none of those did I want to do. I wanted to be in Kenya. But I had to justify how I was going to be in Kenya. And Dr. Wani, you mentioned something, taking the seat at the table. I started thinking, if I want to be the president of an oil field service company, it couldn't happen in the company I worked in. Because when I looked up, there was nobody that looked like me. All right? At that time, they were now preparing me for a VP position. But I got tired of all the politics that was going on. And I decided, if they won't do it, I'll do it. I'll make my own opportunity. So in 2015, I basically rolled out of my bed and started Savo Oil Services in my living room. And what were my skills? Whatever I had learned all these years. So I've gone in from a field engineer into operations, into management, into business. All this time, I'm accumulating skill sets that I never realized would be valuable to me as an entrepreneur. Okay? So, okay, if I can do it, if I can run someone's organization, surely can I run my own? And boy, let me tell you, running your own is more harder than working for somebody else. Because if you don't wake up, if you don't think, if you don't do what you need to do, nothing happens. Savo, my company, is me and I am Savo. Okay? That was the first stretch. And as you said, the first 5 years were the toughest. I'm now a 6-year company. And working here in Kenya, tough. Why? Because I came with all these. I'm not saying that we don't have good business practices here, okay? But I did realize how Americanized, and I still am in many, many ways. And it's not a bad thing, because it's a good thing, because why? It allows me to be able to stand in front of many men that I have to work with, okay? And be very firm and lay my cards on the table. That if I'm going to work with you, this is how I'm going to do it, okay? These are the rules of engagement. You know there's corruption, but I don't deal in it. If I'm going to lose a tender, so be it. I will lose a tender. So basically, I've already planted who I am. So they know, Rogo Savo, this one is a different beast, how we treat it. You understand? So that is basically, I started making a name for myself now as Engineer Rogo, not as Engineer Rogo of Weatherford, heading an American company, but Engineer Rogo of the first woman to start an oil field service company in East Africa. One of my mandates was to bring in women, because like I said, I didn't see a lot of women when I was coming through the ranks. And boy, oh boy, I have to tell you something, and I'll say more for petroleum. The women are kicking butt, let me just use it that way. You're kicking, you are doing things, you are really making progress. I'm so impressed with the women, and I will say especially Kenyatta University, who I deal with a lot. I was with them when they started their first petroleum engineering department. Are you from KU? You're smiling so hard. So I have not a long, but I have a good history, and I have a history through the Society of Petroleum Engineers. I was the first chair for the association, and I work very strongly now with the chapter. So what am I saying? What am I trying to say when I say opportunities? I could have stood here and put a list here of opportunities in the energy space. Anyone can do it. You're clever enough. I don't have to insult you. What I'm just trying to do is to show you the journey that I went through, the opportunities, when I looked at opportunities, how I watched people who are above me, how I decided where I needed to go. Sometimes it was my own initiative, sometimes it was the luck, sometimes it's a combination. I work in a predominantly male society, so I had to learn how to work with men. And I had to be able to convince these men to be able to convince these men so that, look, I'll go to them and say, look, I want to get to this position, what do I need to do? I go, very frank, if this is what you need to do, this is how long it's going to take you to do it. And the sort of attitude and networking. So the operations, working in the field for me actually was one of the best things I ever did. because oil and gas is very male-oriented. They don't want to hear about periods or all that stuff, all these women things. They don't want to hear about crying. Oh, I cried many, many times in my truck. But when I got out of that truck, I looked just as tough as the men. You understand? When they asked me to, we used to call them chicksons. You take pipelines or pipes, casing, and you have to be like the men. And you're like, I went to engineering. What the hell am I doing, hammering pipes together? You understand? Why am I dragging? Why am I dragging a laboratory behind me? Can they not get a driver or somebody to do that? But this is all part of the lesson. So in my field work, I was a boss in my own little thing. So I always thought of myself, I'm running my little enterprise. As long as I'm able to do a good job, I don't become the weakest link. So that's always been the way that I work. Now, we come to what we call energy transition, which has changed the way we're doing things. All of a sudden, oil and gas is not sexy. I'm seeing petroleum engineering students telling me, I don't know what to do. There's nothing happening here in Kenya. Tano oil is quiet. The government is quiet. What am I supposed to do? I tell everyone, first of all, you're an engineer. All these other things, just you took 2, 3, 4 subjects that differentiated you. On the core, you're an engineer. So a petroleum engineer can go into geothermal. And a lot of them were shocked. They were like, really? I said, but geothermal, you drill, isn't it? You're drilling. The only difference is what's coming out of the ground. But the techniques are basically the same. And in geothermal is very challenging. So during my time at Weatherford, everybody was oil and gas, because that's where the big money was. But I told them, hey, we have another resource here in Kenya called geothermal. And the guys were not interested. They were like, Liz, that's 4 cousins, good geothermal. But look at where geothermal is right now. Kenya is number 7 in the world, number 1 in Africa when it comes to geothermal. We are the ones who are actually educating other African countries and other people who come to Kenya how to drill complex wells. Now, somebody like me who comes then with my oil and gas, I'm able to help the geothermal drillers to minimize on their time, because this thing of drilling 3 months a well is ridiculous, especially if we're drilling what we call a vertical well. We now do what we call directional wells. We can do multilaterals. We can do all sorts of fancy stuff in order to ensure that we have greater surface area for the steam that we're looking for. Okay? So, energy transition in itself is not a bad thing. I just think that we need to have diversification of energy, but let me tell you, oil and gas is here to stay. I will be dead and you'll still be using oil and gas. That's what I'm trying to say, which is important. Yes, you may be running around with your electric cars, but all your petrochemicals are all going to be run by oil and gas. Plastics, where do you think that comes from? As oil and gas. Even if you have your planes, they tell you all these eco-fuels, it is still oil and gas. It's still crude, but mixed with biofuels. You understand? So there is still room for people within the oil and gas sector to play a big role in the renewables. So in my company, we are doing oil and gas when it happens. We're doing geothermal, very, very big on the geothermal side. We started doing wind farms, so every time I look at Gong and I see those turbines are running, I feel very proud, because we were able to fix some of those turbines with my very young team. We also do run field tests. We bring in very expensive and sensitive tools. So we just did a project for Kenya, bringing in the first what we call MWD, measurement while drilling tool, very sensitive out of Houston. They were taken by ship to Djibouti, and from Djibouti by road to Ethiopia, where KenGen is working. And this is a female-owned or woman-owned company, which brings me back to what you were talking about, AGPO. AGPO, I don't know what AGPO stands for, I always forget, but it's like women and disability. Yes. So as much as I like to think of myself as a technical company, I'm not ashamed to say I'm a woman-founded company, and I make sure that any of these programs that are available, except for the one you mentioned, which I'm not going to get onto, all these programs that are available, we go in because these companies are crying. They're saying we can't find women with the technical acumen to do this because by law, the government has to give 30% of tenders to women. When I started in 2015, the only tenders I've seen for women were supply of eggs, supply of whatever. And I marched, yes, I marched to the office and I said, oh, hold on, I'm an engineering degree, what am I doing supplying eggs? Why don't you give us tenders within the APCO group that we can do it? They're like, oh yeah, but this, nobody, I said, just do it. And you know what the secret is, ladies? Ladies and gentlemen? The women in APCO are doing extremely well. They're just quiet about it. You don't hear it. It's the men that let's say, Kenyan women say, man, you women are really something else. You know? Because why? Because of, we bring in certain skill sets. We are very, what's the word? That's what I'm looking for. The way we perform, the way we look at things, we are very minute in how we look at things. The only fault that we have about us is that we're sometimes afraid to stretch ourselves. You know, as I think Dr. Wanda said, we always feel that we have to tick all the boxes to be able to go there. And also, we're very afraid to go to somebody and say, look, I think I can do this. You know, just give me a chance to do this. Okay? Now, so I'm going to come back because I know that Dr. Engineer Margaret also has to go and I'm watching the time. In terms of opportunities are massive in the energy sector. Do not be afraid if you don't see many people. You now know us, and we all come from different sectors. Get yourself engaged with associations like Society of Petroleum Engineers, okay? They're very, very strong. Go to LinkedIn, but please don't write and tell me, can you be my mentor? That one is very off-putting, okay? If you're going to come and approach myself, Engineer Margaret, Dr. Wanda, you need to approach it with something in particular. But people are very, very busy, okay? We will help you, but we can't sit there and do your work, okay? Also study. Make sure that you study on your own time. Read. I have my engineers read, and I quiz them on things. They need to understand what's happening on the global setting, regional setting, international setting. I give them opportunities to attend trade fairs, to attend shows. I go to conferences a lot. I speak a lot at conferences. I mentor. I just came back from Nigeria, where I was the first Kenyan woman to win an award from the Big Oil and Gas Association. I'm very, very proud about that. And during this time, as I'm working, I've also decided to serve my country, or given the opportunity to serve, and to serve on boards. So I've been on Kenya Power. So last year, when you started hearing a lot about Kenya Power, I was a member of that board. But we go to cheaper electricity, I hope. And I now sit as a director on National Oil. So that's law as well. So there are many, many other things that I do. I'm also a farmer. I now farm sugarcane up in Kitale. So there's a lot of other interests that I do. But I want you to stay the course. For those of you who want to be entrepreneurs, I wish I'd had the opportunity to have done it younger, I think. I don't know if I'd have been ready. But you now have the opportunity to hear from us, to know that it is possible to not only work, but also become an entrepreneur in an area of interest to you. And there's nothing wrong with being in a company. I never ever thought I would be doing what I'm doing. But it's only because, why? I'm very open-minded. I always say, do something. If it doesn't work, you can always retreat and never look at failure as a bad thing. It is failure that teaches you. It's not when you do a good thing. It is failure that teaches you. It is failure that stretches you. So failure, use failure positively. We're all going to fail at something. Use it in a positive manner. Okay? But always get up. And always know that many, many other doors, if this door doesn't work, there are many, many other doors that you can open that can get you somewhere. And be open to the world, be open to the spirit, because sometimes where we want to go, the world is leading you in a completely different direction. So I hope this will, I think I'll end here. As I said, it's just to let you know opportunities abound. And here in Kenya, do not be afraid to also look for opportunities outside of the country. If I had not gone or studied in Canada, the UK, the US, and had the opportunity to work outside, who knows, maybe I would have never done what I'm doing right now. But that doesn't mean that if you study here, it doesn't take you anywhere. I'm just saying, when you study here, there's an opportunity to do something, even across the border. Go to Uganda, there's some amazing things that are happening there. Okay? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Madam Engineer. I just, before you leave, is there any questions for her? I'll take one. Just one because of engineer. Please tell us your name and ask your question. Hello.
I'm doing that. I have a question for you. You said like when you transitioned from, let's say when you're working with Veracode and then you came to start your own company, there was a disconnect between like the work environment in whether for like the US and in Kenya. Besides corruption, what is it was different? Like within, like, let's say when you're working with maybe your engineers in your company, what was different just besides corruption?
Oh yeah, okay, no, that's a very good question. I think some of the things that were different were some of my colleagues would have preferred to have seen a white man being their boss. That was one of the things. So not only was I a woman, but I'm Kenyan, I'm an expatriate. Some of them didn't like the salary I was earning, but I told them I went to school, I worked hard, and I'm earning what I'm earning because of my work. Nobody's doing me any favors. And then networking. I was new. I mean, I came back home and I was new to home. I'm still new. I'm still struggling sometimes with, because you leave at an early age, you do all your formative years are done outside, so you're coming in more as an adult. So it's that whole connection. So I also had to wrap my mind on being able to do things. But believe me, I don't see corruption as being a killer for me. I just learned how to sidestep it. And it's there. Corruption is everywhere. It's just that here it seems to be more prevalent than others. And let me tell you one thing. If you know your work, if you know your job, if you have good experience, good skill set, because people would like you. I worked in areas that were so racist, and I'm talking about KKK. You know the people in the white coats? I used to work in those sort of areas. But do you know something? They were the nicest people to me. Okay? Don't ask me why. They all seem to love me then. But because I was very open to them, and I think also because I was a foreigner. They could tell she wasn't from here. So, yeah, so I've managed. I've not gone back to the US. So, I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please let's give her a round of applause. Well, I believe this for starting this seminar, there's two things that keep coming up. First, they have their main career, they have their own side business. And everyone is just teaching them, So it's all of us. And then the second thing that, the main thing that we've taken from her is that there are opportunities. All of us are engineers, well, except for a few of us, but they have had that the basic training is similar. So that means you can go to different fields. And as you transition to the next segment, there are challenges that keep us, or rather they hold us behind. And that is what we are going to be looking at in our next segment as we transition and as we try to welcome Madam Margaret Uche. And as we started also, I asked, what do you think is a hindrance for women to get to management positions? We have gotten the opportunity, we have our side businesses. But what is the hindrance? Anyone would like to just give a 1 minute answer? What is a hindrance? What do you think is a hindrance for women to get management positions?
So, first of all, I think, as much as women, we are superseded by existing stereotypes and biases.
so happens sadly that we have internalized some. When someone tells you you're incapable, you believe it. So when they say women aren't exactly good leaders, so you start believing it. And when those positions come up, you start thinking, okay, I don't really think I am part of this. So that also comes, and it's also part of the reason why we want to tick all the boxes before we leave it and choose that particular position. Please let's come forward. And so, Madam is taking us through rising to management and positioning oneself for some opportunities. And I know she's going to be delving on these topics and just getting to lessons from, how do we position ourselves? How do we get to the level that you normally dream of and also see yourself succeed? And just to give you a quick story about Madam Margaret, is that she started here at AP Section as a steel engineer, and she rose through the ranks to become the current general manager in charge of the branch network in Kenya. Along her career path, she has served as the Nairobi Westlands branch manager and thereafter as sales manager here at the head office. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Agricultural Engineering from the University of Nairobi and an executive MBA from JKUAT, that is Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. Madam, welcome.
Thank you very much. I've come with my phone here, not to refer to it, but it's because in Davis and Chadwick, I say we do not keep time, we are actually obsessed with time. It's an obsession. So when we call for meetings, I was telling Engineer Elizabeth here, when we call for meetings, and the meeting is starting at 8 o'clock, and you come in at 7:59, people look at you like, why are you so late? And oftentimes we actually start meetings at 5. If we find we are all there, just one person meeting. I remember a very critical media review and executive board meeting, and we were all there long before time, and only one person was missing. They said, "What is that?" And they came in on time, and they found us progressing. So it's an obsession. So I put a timer for 30 minutes there. I stand here as a host. I suppose I needed to speak because we are hosting this function, but I also hope that I have some content to share with you. Welcome to Davis and Chadwick. I've been here for 26 years. It's a long, my former CEO, David Katende, used to say, I've been here for 36 years and I don't know whether I should be proud of it or I should be embarrassed of it. So I don't know, tell me which one it is. But I'm happy. I'm happy to stand here. I welcome you to Davis and Chadwick. I feel a little intimidated from after Dr. Wala and Engineer Elizabeth. But I told myself when I was listening to them, when I was a fresh graduate, I just left the University of Nairobi in 1996. Were you guys born? Were you? I don't know what the age group is. I do remember when I was looking for a job, and I'll give you a brief history of how I grew up. I was at home listening to radio. Who listens to radio now? I don't know. I was listening to radio. It was after lunch. My home is not far from here. It's in Kiambu. And I don't know why. They started talking about Kofi Annan. You remember Kofi Annan? The former Secretary General? And he was speaking in a women's conference. And he was trying to give them nuggets of wisdom. I suppose it was a forum like this one. There was a man speaking to women. And one thing he said had never left me. He said, I guess you hear from people say, you can do it this way, you can do it this way, this is how we did it. Which is what we are doing, and which in and of itself is very inspiring. You all need to hear these stories. The art of storytelling cannot be underestimated. But he said this: I'm the first Black Secretary General of the UN. You probably know it. Sort of neighborhood. He was the first Black Secretary General of the UN, and he said, I'm the first person to have climbed through the ranks to the position, because I guess at some point they would make appointments from outside. But he climbed through from the junior position and found himself all the way to the top level of the man being the Secretary General of the UN. And this is the nugget of wisdom he gave me. I have never left it. He said, can I tell you something, women? This one thing you must learn. Do it your own way. chart your own path. You can learn from others, but it doesn't mean that your story will be like mine or will be like Engineer Elizabeth or Fawada. Do it your way. Get what you can from other people, but do it your way. Do not try to do your life like someone else, someone you admire, and you're trying to align yourself with them. You're not them. You know, God never meant you to be them. So do it your way. So I thought I should say that. But I'll start briefly. I asked Lydia, who invited me, should I come with a PowerPoint? She said, nah. So now I'm seeing PowerPoints. I'm thinking, I've made a better impression with a PowerPoint. But I was the lunch. I think we did, like the politicians do. They're some of the biggest, basic opinion of politicians. They don't go to political rallies in PowerPoint. So I'm also trying to wean myself off PowerPoints and learn to speak. But I have a few notes I put here. So the first thing I want to do is to introduce myself. Like you've had, if I left university in 1996, how old would I be? Is a good math, the engineers? I'm a nerd, my friends. Eh? So at least on account of it, listen to me. On account of it, you know how you go to the village, and if you're like me, I do like to sit next to old ladies or old men. It really doesn't matter whether they went to school or not, and I find absolute joy in gleaning wisdom from them. Yeah? Nothing to do with whether they went to school or not. Just doing life for 70 years teaches you a lot of things. In fact, going to school is a very small portion of education, if you know what I mean. So, on account of it, respect me. I'm turning 5 tickets this day. I'll be 50. And I just a brief introduction of myself. First of all, I'm a woman of faith. So you will hear the word God many times. My speech will be in that context. I'm not going to preach. You know, I'm in the secular world, you know. So I'm not going to preach to you, but I'm a woman of faith. I'm married with 2 children. My older daughter is 20. She's doing law at Strathmore. And I actually asked her, if I was speaking to you, what would you like to hear from me? So she gave me some pointers as to what I should tell you. Because I was telling Engineer Elizabeth here, my struggles in these talks is to speak in context. You get, if I'm 5 decades, am I speaking to people who are understanding my language, or they're wondering, this old woman, what is she saying? So she gave me some pointers to what I should be saying today. Besides that, I grew up in not very far from here, Kiambu. I went to a very local public primary school. I'm not Houston. We learned in Kikuyu. We learned English in Kikuyu. My daughters make so much fun, you know, because I'm married in Western Kenya, and so my daughters don't have a tribe. As a matter of fact, we've allocated each other tribes. So I'm Kikuyu. My husband is there. My older daughter chose Kisii, and my younger daughter chose Kalenjin. So we have 4 tribes in my house. Anyway, so that's my upbringing. I grew up just not far from here in Kiambu. I'm trying to put my background in context so that when I say the things I say, you see where I'm coming from. And and I'm serious. We learned English in Kikuyu. And so by the time I did we were the first 844 system. By the time I did that, I wasn't even fluent in English. And when people ask me, so why did you learn English? I say it's self-taught. And I think that's one nugget of wisdom. Sometimes we feel like our background is limiting us. It shouldn't. I don't understand how people go to Harvard and come back and they speak in a Meru accent. I think, to be honest, I think there's some things you own, irrespective of the background you came from, and you come out of them because of your own self-initiative. I told my daughter, I would look at the dictionary, and every time I was looking at the meaning of a word, I would actually look at how it is pronounced. Remember, I grew up where we didn't have Google. Can you imagine? There were no websites. Can you imagine? My daughter asked me, how did you go to school without Google? We were very sharp. But there was a whole unit called general knowledge. It was just checking what it is to learn what was from where. So anyway, so I went to school in Kiambu in a public school. And I went to a good secondary school, but I don't remember one moment in my secondary school. Actually, when I went to secondary school, I was an average student because I went to a school which I felt I did not belong to. I thought it was not even the one in Kikuyu. It was another. Still, coming from such a school, I thought I didn't belong there. And so I started, I say this as one of the experience stories. I remember my first result. I still remember how the results I got. I was number 58 out of 72. And I said, I think I gave it a good try. knowing where I come from. And I went and told my dad I was shaking because then parenting was different. Parenting was very different from today. The first thing you did when you got home from boarding school is to hi, report card. That's how you. And they came from a place of love, guys. And I think we could learn from them. I think we saw. Anyway, our parenting has shifted. So I do remember my dad telling me, he told me, you're in a very good school. It just means that the people around you are very sharp. Cut the long story short, by the time I got to Form 3, I was stopped and I led my school. But one day in the evening, a maths teacher called me to the staff room and said, Margaret, you're very good in mathematics, in physics, I think you should do engineering. And that's where my journey for engineering began. And I didn't take it seriously, to be honest with you. This is what I did. I had a cousin who was doing very well and he had done pharmacy. I said, I need money. Money is what I'm going to school for. I'm speaking to some of you guys who are pursuing careers in the name of money. Your passion is not there, and you're just thinking, if I go this way, I might make more money. Anyway, I said, yeah. I'll put it as my second choice. My first choice is pharmacy. Anyway, I didn't make it for pharmacy. I made it for engineering, and I told my daughters it was to do my life again. I would do engineering. I would actually do engineering. So we did engineering in those days. I don't know how it is nowadays. If you were more than one lady in a class, you filtered. Some classes just went without a woman, so we were in a very well-dominated classes, and lecturers. Some were softer towards us in a bad way. This one used to call me one boy, you're my mother, in a bad way, Seriously, and some were skeptical, like, what are these women doing now? I don't know whether that happened. The people we entered last year with, the ones that came out on the other side were so few. It's sad, isn't it? Yeah, so there was this look, and I remember this guy who asked me, Margaret, what are you doing in engineering? Did you make it? I took it so personally. Do you know what happened? After we graduated and I joined Davis and Shadley, we were told to go and speak there. I saw him there. I addressed him. I didn't get off my chest. Such was the stereotyping, even from a fellow classmate. Seriously, they didn't think we belonged. That was the context we had, and I'm hoping that things have shifted. Anyway, so we graduated, and the graduation was long in coming because I remember those days we strike every year. Finally, we graduated, we got jobs. I got some few small jobs, but the first big job I got was Davis and Shadley. This is where I'm saying, everybody, please do it your way. It doesn't have to happen my way. And so when I joined, I was only the second lady engineer in Davis and Shadley, the one who had joined the year before me. And I was the next one, and I guess there was a feeling of being experimented with. Would it work? Part of it was like fanning us. Just do it. And a bit of it was like, that's it. Do you know there was no dress code in DNS? Right. My father DNS, there's no dress code for women. So, at first we thought trousers are not allowed. One day, the senior engineer walked in with a trouser and we all said, what? Why wouldn't someone? There was no dress code. And then he said, oh, we cannot wear trousers. And blah, blah, maternity, who is giving birth where, these are all men. There were no structures for women, not because there was negligence, there was never need to, because there were just not enough women. And so I joined, and I started as an engineer, like all of you would know. Engineers in Davis and Shadley are employed because with their technical knowledge, they can prescribe technical solutions. Equipment resale, if you're a layman, you would struggle. You would struggle to understand how much pressure is needed, how much water is needed. Basically, engineering in Davis and Shadley is used in the background, but the core job here is to sell solutions to the customers. Yeah? But engineering is needed in the background. And so I started as an engineer, and I want to show you how life doesn't happen in a linear way, because as you're doing this, you're getting a little older, you're looking for a man, and I was one of those who was playing around in campus. By the time people are graduating, I realized people had husbands. And I was not even having a boyfriend, And all my good guys are free to reconnect. Thank God. They know I'm not serious. Serious person. I'm not going to get serious woman to do life. And it on me. I mean, Davis and Shakti, I don't have a boyfriend. Let's start there. We didn't have social media. We didn't have LinkedIn. These kind of things. Anyway, so as I'm joining the organization, life is happening, and I'm interested in a certain guy who is in a very different career because he's a pastor, and he's from Western Kenya. I know you're thinking, what's the big deal? Those days we didn't do that. You married your tribe's pastor, And so this is me defying all odds to marry a cross career in a big way. My sister asked me, are you going to be living at the back of a church? We're so sad for you. You're so sad for you. And then she saw my meeting at her house. She said, you should laugh. I hope you laugh at this joke. She said, your man is from Kansas. I said, oh yeah, he's real. Oh, this is one too. So it's like things in our life. It was so stressful for me just to do my private life and do my corporate life and trying very much to prove myself in both. Because life is not linear. As you're pursuing your career, stuff is happening. Stuff is happening. So anyway, cut the long story short, when I got married, because I finally got a man, I got married. I remember when I came from honeymoon, I was promoted. And I was thinking, the way I just want to start giving back. This place where you have to prove yourself. Has any engineer ever given back? No. Because even the one I had joined with was married to someone, she was not even married. So this is me paving the way for women in Davis and Shop. So even the maternity, hey, we now start looking at the law. I think I was told it's 8 weeks. I did 8 weeks. I did 8 weeks. But then I had changed house girls like 3, 4, 5 times. By the time I came, I had a new one who had come last night. My baby is doing this to the neck. And I was promoted. This is me balancing life and career. And I think one of the nuggets of wisdom I want to give you is that it's not either or. It's a famous or infamous topic of work-life balance. It's real. I badly wanted to be a man. As a teenager, I wanted to be a man. More than I even wanted to be married. Sorry to say, it's just that I needed to be in the context of marriage to get a baby, but I wanted so bad to be a mother. So that I wasn't going to compromise with that. Anyway, so I'm here. Pregnancy comes. In fact, I accelerated it. I wanted it to come so bad. And I remember I started missing. I was in a headspace of my own. I would miss important meetings, and one day the chairman asked, "Why didn't you come for that meeting?" I said, "Because I'm pregnant." Oh, yeah, nobody tells me these things. We didn't know. And so, yeah, it was a spectacle. Now she's pregnant. What are we doing that? I think, and everybody here has sort of had me say this. I think psychologically, I worked so hard to compensate for it. I remember getting an award when my stomach was there. I was commended for God knows what I had done. And so, so I came back 8 weeks later, trying to balance. And then, just to accelerate, we decided we'll start our first branch in Nairobi. We didn't even know it would work, let alone a woman heading it. No woman had ever headed a branch. So it was experimental on both levels. Will the branch work? Will the woman work? And by the time it came, I had told myself, you know how you guys are? You've written your life. 2 years I get married, 2 years a child, then the child, 2 years it's a boy, a girl, and then here I do this, and like that. And so by the time I went to Westlands, it was time to get the second one. Now I say, serious. Will I be taken seriously? I'm pregnant, I've been given the opportunity of a lifetime, no woman has ever done this. I will not be taken seriously. Another nugget of wisdom. I made my first big sacrifice. I said, I will not get a second child until this branch is set up and is up and running. Sacrifice. And so the difference between my firstborn and my secondborn is 3.5 years. And I remember very well, when I got my secondborn, I was given an award. Again, psychologically, I want to overcompensate. This is a lot for women. Guys, I'm a female leader, but I do not want to see sluggishness from women because they're pregnant. Because, first of all, what you're doing is natural. You brought it upon yourself, unless you are it. You brought it upon yourself. I wanted it so bad. It was part of my life. Yeah? I think psychologically I was compensated for it. I got an award. And I'm not embarrassed to say this because I think, again, it's not either or. It's this and. A journey is, let me get you back to the topic. How to get back to the top position doesn't come easy. Yeah? And so anyway, the branch was up and running, and then I was reported to head office and to accelerate the story because I don't want to go into the details of it. We decided after the country went into devolution that we wanted to accelerate our branch opening. The process was is that we had 5 branches, and we said because money has now been devolved, we need to follow where the money is. At the top level, it was decided Margaret will be one of the executives who will be, and then I think joined the executive team. Again, I was the only lady there. And so I was told you will have the Eastern cluster. But the joke is the people in PNS know this, there was not Eastern cluster. So it was me to start. And so there was a Western cluster, Kisumu and wherever there was an Arabic cluster, there was Coast cluster. There was no Eastern cluster. You know what my first assignment was? To set up Garissa branch. But Al-Shabaab was, these days, I think they lack funding. They shouldn't really. I think those days they had a lot of funding. It was bombing after bombing after bombing. That was my first assignment. And I remember we had toyed with the idea for so long, and I think I was only 2 months just set up the branch. And I think, give me 6 weeks. 6 weeks it was up and running. When I started a journal from there, because it was such a great milestone. Not to cut the long story short, that went well. And then fast forward, many years later, we decided to consolidate all the branches and one executive, and that's how I am today. Okay? So that's my journey, and I thought I should pick out a few things that have driven me to the level that I am. One is my guiding principles. Yeah? Remember, guys, do it your way. You don't have to do it my way. I'll give you 5 Ds that have guided me. One is desire. You have to desire it. Do you know what? Especially for women. Nobody comes looking for you, shop on you. And they're scratching their head wondering, where do you place Agnes? Nobody. Desire it and work towards it. I remember as a very new engineer in DNS, I was coming from the canteen. I don't know why I have such a photographic memory of it. You see, in this company, there are no women. Not even in the executive level. I'll be a GM in this company. I needed to defy all the odds. I decided from, I think it could have been a month old in DNS, I would join my executive team. Yeah? It's got to come from within you. If you don't desire it, nobody is going to chase you to get this position. Yeah? The second thing, guiding principle is direction. Oftentimes I see, I guess because I'm in the DNS context, people changing careers, even within the company or outside the company. I'm like, you're losing the direction. What's the end goal here? It's like they're going this way, and then they're coming this way, and then by the time they come back, they've lost so much momentum. Direction. Decide this is where I go, and aim there, and stick within the path that gets you there. Have direction. If you want to be in top management, see what needs to be done. Back. So for me to get there, I need to do 1, 2, 3. So now I have direction. This is the path I'm walking. It's not always straight, but let it be there within you. But this is the direction I'm going. The third one, which is the most important, is determination. Basically, it's not easy. You have to be determined. People say that women work twice as much as men. I haven't done the math to see whether I put in twice as much work as my male counterpart. But I know there has to be something within you, something that doesn't come from HR policies or a memo or anything, something that makes you every day, a determination, a fighting spirit, a saying and never die kind of spirit. Okay? You've got to be determined. It's got to come from within you. Please don't say, you're in our company and they're like this, right? You determine your destiny, guys. Between you and God, you're the majority. Don't blame the systems, don't blame the company. Let the determination be from within you. It shows, because I sit in the executive level. I know the guys who have a drive. I know the guys who are sitting pretty, hoping that we are seeing them. And we won't look in your direction. Oftentimes, we actually appoint people who are not necessarily so qualified, but they have this kind of character. They're so determined, they're fighting. They're like this person with just a bit of training, they'll get us there. Okay? Determination. That's from the beginning. And it doesn't come from the salary. It doesn't matter how much you're being paid. needs to come from the area. The fourth one is discipline. All the PNS people are looking at me and saying, there goes the woman of discipline. Discipline, stick with it. Yeah? You're not the one who is showing up at 8 or 5. I don't know if PNS you have a session in time. Someone saying, PNS, that when you find yourself late, imagine not sick. Because just being there, walking in at 8:15 is just calling sick. Please, take a day off. Discipline. You're not the one who goes to the canteen and takes 2 hours. It cannot be the women who are in gossip corners. It cannot be. Discipline. If this is the way the company is going to toe the line and show others, be an example to others. If you want to get to the management level, we look at those things from where we are. When we are appointing you, we look at whether this person is disciplined. They're the ones who are misusing company vehicles. Someone told me people are using Davis and Shakti vehicles to go and harvest in their fields. So they bring maize to town. And for fifth, because I'm a woman of God, the dependence of God. Sometimes we make all these plans. Always turn out that way. It's dependent on God. Sometimes God even has a better plan. So dependence of God. What have been some of my challenges? I've pointed at them. One is stereotyping. I will never forget. One day I was talking to a customer, he was a Mzungu customer, in the middle of a conversation. Can you believe this? You're talking serious stuff. He walked away from me and said, I want serious engineering. Man, in the showroom, when I say I have never been so embarrassed in my career, that was a moment of record. The stereotyping that we go through. I think it's getting better, and it's there. You enter a government body and they were expecting a man. I booked a meeting with the governor. They almost exhaling when they see me, wondering does she know what she's talking about. So the stereotyping is real, guys. Another challenge is that I'm in a very male-dominated field and company and executive team. I've been the only female in the executive team for the longest time. We had one of our HR general managers who joined, but she got sick and dropped off. So you could say largely it's only been me. So being in a very male-dominated and knowing how to behave and not to be reduced to be a tigger. And say, we don't say prayers here, but yeah, you can be taught to take minutes, and I have refused to do that. You will not, but saying I have never, somehow by the grace of God, I have never positioned myself to that level. Perhaps I had gone for enough of this conference, this to know that there are things you don't do in the boardroom, this thing of saying, can I serve you tea? I thought, maybe they can serve me tea, I don't pick up the dishes. No, I don't do that. So, male-dominated field, it's also lonely up here. You don't know it. As you aspire to grow, it's very lonely. It's very cold. You don't have a woman friend you can say, if you see the are looking at me. You'll be surprised, even out here, there are not many people who can what can I say, identify with what I'm going through. It's lonely up here. Yeah? And so you got to remember that. I guess, the higher you go, the cooler it gets. It can be very, very lonely. And even people in PNS know I often shut my door, not to shut people out, but I just want to use my working hours to do the work because oftentimes I don't have a lot of social networks at all. People come to my office and they think, she's a boss. Is she going to report what I told her? Stuff like that, So it can be very, very lonely. The few trips I've taken, international trips, even local trips when I make them, almost always the only woman. Even when it's an all-African trip, always the only woman. It's lonely. Yeah? So those are some of the challenges. Triumphs, there are many, and I'm running out of time. One is that I get to fulfill my purpose. Everybody is born with something. You want just born to exist. I think the higher you go, the bigger platform you get to fulfill your purpose. The reason why you're born, the reason why you come this far. If you remain in that position, I guess you could fulfill it, and you have a much better platform as you climb the ladder. Second thing is growth. Growth not just in terms of money, it's a person. You grow a lot. You grow psychologically, emotionally. Growth is important. You can't be the same, if I'm the same exactly the way I was last year, I'm wasting my time. There's a lot of growth as you climb the career ladder. Yeah? And you need to position yourself for that. The third one, and I may not go through a lot, is impact. I think you have an opportunity to touch more people people, the stakeholders that we deal with, customers, and the government officers that I need to meet with. Okay, maybe it's like Dr. Wala was saying, some of these things are inborn, but I would hate to go to my deathbed and, I haven't done much with my life. I get to have impact. I go to Lulu, I go to a jail, Marsabit, and I have these conversations with people, and you can see how your conversations are transforming lives. Impact. You need a position for some of these things. If I'm being called, the other day I was called to be a keynote speaker in the University of Nairobi. See, I didn't have this position. They wouldn't have invited me. It's important, yeah? Isn't it? It's important, even to be here, I suppose. It's because of where I am, yeah? And I think in terms of platform, recently we have started a Women in Leadership Forum in Davis Initiative, and by virtue of my seniority, I was going to chair it. And what a joy it's been. The people here know they have participated. It started in a certain way, it's evolved. We were actually featured in the Business Daily this week, one day before International Women's Day. It really made my day. And again, the conversations I hear when I go to post to visit them, and they tell me, Margaret, you have no idea how you've transformed our lives. It gives me a platform to do these things that I do on a Saturday with absolute joy, not being paid a penny. I would rather not do something, go for a wedding or something. Be here gives me the platform to do that. And of course, it opens many more opportunities. When the more senior you are, the more the opportunities like for speaking engagement, speaking on radio, on TV, just interacting with people, travel even. So it gives you a lot of, it's something to look forward to, guys. So if you're aspiring to be in a senior position, it's something to do for you. Okay? I see I have 13 seconds left, so I'll try and wrap this up. Some nuggets of wisdom I thought I should share with you. Now, this is where you remember I'm 5 decades. So I'm a total of age. I have some wisdom. So some nuggets of wisdom I want to leave with you. One, whatever you find to do, I don't know what you guys are doing, yeah? Whatever you find to do, give it your best. Do it with all your power and all your might. Give it your best because you never know the impact it will have. Second nugget of wisdom, and this is my own thing, and I believe it's so hard. The excellency is the currency that beats gender bias. Doesn't matter if you're a woman, if you're doing an excellent job, excellent. And I take great exception when I see women who are mediocre, and it's just look, they have known for what they stand for. In Indianness, we celebrate a lot of women who are go-getters. They're sitting here, most of them, yeah. Excellence is a currency that beats this fire. This stereotyping, be excellent. People will forget you're a woman. Does it matter if you're a woman and you're the best in this field and you're the best in that and you're the one getting awards and you're doing this? Doesn't matter. So please, pursue excellence. Another nugget of wisdom, please set your priorities right for now and for the future. One thing I told myself when I was your age, and I'm trying to get the average age here. When I was 23, 24, 25, I told myself, if I get to 60 or 50 something, then 50 looks so far. I'm here now. If I get there and I'm looking back in my life, the 100 do not want to have that I never had for my children. I say, I can deal with everything else, but that I can't deal with. And from then on, I told myself I will not apply for an international job. I will not engage in a job that has a lot of maybe travel. I do remember when my daughters got to about 10 and told God, I can do a bit of travel. Do you know how God was? I was appointed to start doing branches, so I had a lot of travel. So, but before then, my priorities were right, but straight. It was clear in my head. So I don't know what your priorities are. Set them right for now and for the future, because you don't want to get to the pinnacle, and then you have so many regrets. You drop the ball on the most important things in your life. You decide what it is that is a priority and set it right now. Like I said, chart your own path, and I said here, it's normal to feel discouraged. It's easy for me to speak for these 30 minutes and make it look easy. Yeah, I have been down to the lowest. It's normal. It's all right. But please don't stay there too long. Please, just dust yourself off and come up again. The next one is that networking takes you places you would never go on your own. Women oftentimes, I don't want to sound bad, they want to network in chamas, merry-go-rounds, where they transform. Do you know that? Maybe you've never seen them. In Houston, I don't think they have them. Your circles are just women in your neighborhood, your cousins, and all that. No, just elevate yourself. network with people who can take you places you know, senior people in government, senior people in private sector, and sometimes I think we limit ourselves because we think, oh, he'll come after me. I told my daughter, I came out of this silliness of thinking that every man who is interested in me deserves my response. I just snapped it on. I just snapped back. I just think I don't need to be part of that conversation. If you're pursuing me, that's your problem. Let's get to the agenda of the day. I try not to dwell on it. Women sometimes they limit themselves. I can't go out at night because what if those men come after me? What? I don't know whether I'm communicating, but I do not limit your networking because you're a woman. Please don't. Ultimately, for me, as a person of faith, I work to the audience of one. My God, why am I saying this? Because there's too much noise in life. There's too much noise. So many expectations. Well, like I say, sometimes when you're a woman, you give back, you don't know what to do. It's like you've done, you're accomplished. Okay, start counting your days to death. It's too much noise. Imagine me being a pastor's wife, being a career woman, being a mother, being everything else I'm supposed to do. You know how much noise I have to deal with. In some areas I've done well, some not so well. But if two things I would tell myself if I was back to your age, I would tell myself, one, just do not have any regard for people's opinions. It's okay that they have opinions. Everybody has. I have my opinion about you, about everybody. It's alright, and I mean it in the best way. I'm not going to give it audience. Yeah, people can say what they say. And another thing I would tell myself if I was your age, I would be more assertive. I think I could have been more assertive. I think I could have done a few things differently. So that's where I end, and I want to end because I said I'm a woman of faith. I want to end by saying, the takeaway is that, give it your best, whatever it is that you plan to do, whether it's in entrepreneurship or energy and petroleum, give it your best. The only reason why these people are talking to us because they've given it their best. Eh? Yeah, otherwise nobody invites you when you feel, at least even when you're feeling bored, you wake up and you feel again. But if you feel that we forgot you, nobody will invite you. Give it your best, but read the rest of God. Because, as the Bible says, in Proverbs 69, we make our own plans, but the Lord determines our steps. I have seen women in leadership platform, women sharing their struggles, things that they have not seen coming their way, being a special child, being sick, beating cancer, beating childlessness, struggles, real ones, death of children, stuff happen. Just give it your best, but the Lord will take your steps. Okay? So I'll end there.
And so she takes the 8th question. Question is, you didn't understand, or oh yes. Tell us your name.
If I have tips on being more assertive, I was really hoping you didn't ask that. I think one is to raise your hand. Raise your hand when there are opportunities. If you just keep quiet and thinking, don't these people know that I'm so good in this? No, we don't. We won't feel it. Just raise your hand, one, when there are opportunities, and also when you don't agree with something. I'll tell you something sensitive that happened here. I just wasn't happy with how pregnant women were being treated. And I don't want to go into the details of it, but I booked an appointment with the CEO and had a chat with him. I'm not pregnant. I'm not planning to. I'm done with my 2 children. I don't like how it's been done. I think it's good to raise your hand also when things are not going well. Another way of being assertive, I think, is through your own job. You've been given a job. You're told 1, 2, 3. Be assertive. Like if you're a branch manager, which is deal with the branch managers here, and some of them go in to start their job, and they look like they're victims of their own jobs. How now? Take charge, guys. You can't be escalating everything. Something I say, by the time I write to a staff, these people will be a bit and copy my post. Why would I do that? That is lowering my position. I'm an authority by myself. The position I have is authority now. So you can assert yourself through your job. up when you get an opportunity to make a presentation. You know, guys, we give 5 minutes for people to make presentation. It's all you have. 5 minutes to make it count. So if you come here and you're fumbling and you're shaking and you've lost it. Another person comes here and they could put a good show and it's like, she could do that. You know, those kind of things. They're not in big ways, but in subtle ways. When you're having conversations with your peers, let your voice be heard. So there are many ways of doing something, in and out of work. You know, even in my own family, I have a boss. I'm the sixth one and the last of the girls. Married outside of, they're like, where did you go? I have a boss in our family. I'm busy. So many ways. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I don't know what to add other than to say, God will never give you a handle that you cannot handle. I think that is what I can summit from what she has mentioned. And also to remind us that yes, as ladies, we're going to be sacrificing a lot. We are going to be going through a lot of emotions. People are going to doubt us, and as she said, they're just trying to put that behind us. But at times, you find that you're wondering, is it not? Can I do this? You know, there are those moments that you sink and you're sinking low, and you're wondering, will I ever be happy? Will I ever see tomorrow? You know, and especially who has finished campus recently? Graduate, you find campus, then you're wondering where will I get my next job? How is my next phase of life going to be? You know, I've had you asking about being assertive. It's not easy, and I know she can tell you before she took even her steps. At times she was, a bit shaky, and then before she became courageous, or it was just that direct. And the reason I'm saying this is because as we transition to the next segment, we can say for sure that some of us have either had a friend, a relative, a sibling who has suffered from mental health issues. Is it someone, or am I speaking something that we are not related to? Yes. And you find that there are those skills that you're wondering, so how do I deal with it? Or how I have it? How do I overcome it? I have a brother, I have a sister, so how do I help them? Because you wouldn't want to sit down and to hear that someone committed suicide. Does anyone who has a friend, a relative who has, I know this might be sensitive, who has committed suicide? Anyone? I have personally 2 of them, and it can be heartbreaking because there's stigma. And so that you can be engaging, because now I can see we're just going like this, and I'm like, no, we're not going to do that in the next session. The reason I say that is because you can hear the way Margaret has faced a lot of things. And you're wondering, she's a strong woman, by the way, but you're like, no. She has made it, you can do it. But you need to have those skills and you need to see how you can overcome these things. So as we get into the next session, my first question is, what are the 2 most common mental health illnesses that you guys know of? So for me, let's just introduce you. Depression. So there is anxiety and there is depression. So according to WHO report, there was a survey that was done in 2015 and it showed that 1 in every 8 people, that is approximately 970 million people globally, are living with anxiety and depressive disorders. In 2020, during the pandemic, this number rose to 26% and 28% respectively. So that is 26 for anxiety, 28 for depression. And I know some of us are in therapy, but there is a majority of us who have not been able to access it, right? So as I welcome the next lady, that is Ambassador Marybeth Omolo. She's going to be taking us through
She's going to be yes, she's going to be she's going to be taking us through mental health for women and also just trying to see how we can identify it in others. Thank you so much. Yeah. But to give you just a preview of who Mary Beth is, she is currently a mental health advocate. She is the vice president of AFYEF, that is Young Entrepreneurs Federation, and she is the founder of Friendly Limited, which provides hygiene services in Kenya, and the founder of Mary Ann Foundation. It was formed to offer support to young single mothers and mental health advocacy globally. She is currently the chairperson of East Africa SEARL, that is Transport Cooperative, that cuts across Eastern Africa. It was formed to support the people working in both private and public industry. She is top 40 under 40 award winner under Women Empowerment, top 35 under 35 award winner under hospitality category in Kenya. And she is the second runner-up award winner under the Rising Star Women on Board. She is also the East African ambassador with Global Startup Award all the way from South Africa. Ladies, please help me welcome Ambassador Mary Beth.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's quite hard to speak after amazing it is. Really, really hard. But I'll try my best. It's a great privilege to stand in front of all of us. And one thing I can say, or I can help us sum up from what are amazing the three giants, I call them giants, they're my seniors, engineers of said. And one thing I've learned from them is that before they view themselves as women, they did view themselves as human beings, for them to scale up the ladder. I am only 32. And one thing that I've also learned from them, I remember I told them when we were standing here, is that I'm seeing my future self in them. Reason being, I'm also in a male-dominated field. I do pest control services. And according to the American standard, no woman is supposed to run a pest control company. Neither are we supposed to handle chemicals because of health concerns or other health issues. And each and every time I walk into a government office, because of our tender or because of job, and they're asking me who's the candidate, and I'm the one who's in charge of the company, I tell them I'm the one. And they look at me, why? Because I'm very brief. I really want to flash it. I'm the briefest in our family. So they look at me and they ask, where were you? And I'm like, yes. And I'm like, no, spend some of them. So I end up calling my elder brother. I don't pick offense from it. Reason as to why nowadays I don't pick offense, I used to pick offense so much. But the reason as to why I don't pick offense is because there's one crown I wear pride, is mental health breakdown. I suffered 6 years of depression, 5 suicide attempts, and 4 years of antidepressants. And in that process, when Brenda told me she wants us to talk about mental health among women and how we can advocate about it, as a speaker, you sit down and you write everything you want to speak and you want to do it on PowerPoint, and that was what was in my head. But when my seniors went ahead of me, I realized, no, let's not do that. Let us stop. We are women, and we are in a male-dominated field. Every day we get affected. Every day we get undermined. But how are we going to face that? And I'll tell you through my story, and I'll also link it up with my mom. Recently, I was home for almost 2 weeks taking care of my mother. And every now and then, I'm my mom's best friend. And we sit down and talk a lot. We get to talk a lot. And there are things I get to think about her life that she doesn't know I get to think about it. And it's a lot of things I've seen us women go through. And today I just want us to face the reality. What is mental health? A lot of us think that mental health is things like schizophrenia. Schizophrenia are the Onazimus you see in the street, whereby us being African, we literally associate it with charm or witchcraft. But it's a sickness. What is bipolar? Bipolar, one time you see Mary Bell is talking to you nicely, she's smiling, and the next minute I'm very mad. I'm rude towards you, or I don't want just to talk, I close myself. And what is depression? Now, those are mental health illnesses. But what is just mental health? Mental health is your state of mind. And I always say your mental health is as important as your physical health. And I tell people life is so simple. Very simple, but not easy. It's so simple because we complicate it. How do we complicate it? We complicate it because of what people say, think about us, or what do they want us to do about our own lives. And a lot of our parents have suffered that. Our parents are living a life that they didn't dream about. Why? Because of the society. And what really caused me to go through depression, besides I'm an entrepreneur, just like she said, I run the Green City Pest Control and also self-operated. But before I got to that point, I was employed and I had a very hard time in employment. I would have been an engineer by now, but I'm among the people who dropped their assets. I was studying computer engineering, but after the first semester and the second semester, I couldn't continue with the third semester. We were only 5 girls, and being that we were there, even our own lecturer kept on telling us, you people cannot do it. And being that I grew up in that background of being told, you cannot do it, I believed I cannot do it. And proudly, I can say, I'm actually just I'm turning 32 this year, I stopped believing that I cannot do it at 30. So you can imagine all that while. And by the time I told myself, I can do this, I was able to achieve something that someone at my age cannot achieve. I actually have 10 awards, both locally and globally. And I sit in 4 organizations. Actually 3 are international, 2 are 3 are international, they actually 5. 3 are international, 2 are locally. How was I able to achieve that? The 3 have actually summed up everything that I want us to learn today. Now, when I started suffering from depression, one of the main reasons for my depression was one, society. I am a PK, master's kid. And I grew up being told this is how you need to live. You need to dress like this. You need to talk like this. You need to express yourself like this. It was a mistake for me to be seen talking to her, or even just saying hi, or smiling. It was a crime being seen putting on a trouser, or being putting on a slippers. It was a crime being seen, even singing or doing anything. I was that, how can I say, trying to look for the correct word. I was so guarded that I could not even express myself. Going to school, I could not talk to everyone. And I remember, I don't blame my mom because our parents were not brought up the way we are bringing up our children right now. So I remember, even going to school, I could not associate with people. So my performance in school was very bad. That is one thing I always say. I used to be number 10 behind. That was always my position. And you can imagine back then, the top, bottom 10 and the top 10 would always be points. So I was ever among the bottom 10. And I did like it. But because you get home, there is a mistake, and your mom will always blame you for it. So I grew up knowing I am a mistake, I am a problem, and anything that goes wrong, it is me. I was raped in 2019, and I could not speak about it because when I tried speaking about it, I was blamed for it. I almost got raped again in I was raped in 2018, 2019, I almost got raped again. Raised it up, I was told, you're the mistake, you're the problem. So I grew up knowing I am a problem. Now, when I began business, before I began business, I was in employment and I suffered sexual harassment with my bosses, 2 of my bosses. And I was in a banking industry. So I remember I went to our HR and I complained, though the same issue was going on before I even got there, but I could not get assistance. And the reason as to I could not get assistance, I will not blame the organization, but I will blame it myself because I was believing, in as much as I'm raising awareness, I am to be with. Very the problem. Now, when I began my own business, but let me explain something. When I started my own business, I wasn't even proud of my tribe. Why? Right now, I'll be proud of it. Why? Everyone is born different. I cannot associate with you based on your second name. No, I associate with you because I know there's something I can benefit from you. Before I know your second name, trust me, you can be my friend for 5 years and I don't know you. I don't even know your home unless you invite me. But I always say before I know Dr. Elizabeth, before she becomes my friend, before she becomes my mentor, let her be my friend and let me see the value in her. So I was fired because of my no. I got dumped because of my no. So my entire life seemed to have resolved around being rejected. And I believe I was a rejection. And one thing I came to learn, rejection is not just rejection. Rejection is a projection of where you're supposed to be, and where you're supposed to go, only if you're able to learn. So 2014, it was actually 2015, I got fired because of my ego. 2012, I was very young, I got dumped because of my ego. And now all of those incidents, I was told face to face. And being told face to face, I wake up in the morning and I remind myself of one thing. Repent, you're a failure. So I would go to work, I would do everything, I'm just a failure. And in that, those thoughts, and processing the thoughts and saying that about me, the failure became part of me. So when I left work in 2014, registered my company, I could not get any businesses. And the first business I landed myself in. It was a government tender, about 20 million. We had to invest 2 million in it. Me and a group of my friends, and I lost it. And when I lost it, I was in a very amazing relationship. I always thought it was the best relationship in my life. Why the best? Because it was the first time I experienced love from somebody else who was not my family member, love from the world. I needed to see life in a different aspect. Now, fast forward in 2018, I'm jobless, the guy is jobless, and there's always a problem with that. And I'll explain. I normally tell you it is never rush to settle down at a younger age. That is one thing I always say, unless it's God divine, never rushing. So I was there, we are both jobless, and when you're all jobless, you have the time, lovey-dovey and everything. And I felt like this is happening. My mom wasn't talking to me. My family wasn't concerned because I moved to Nairobi without approval. So I was like, this is all I need. Now, 2018, when I lost the money on the business, everything went haywire. I started becoming a punching bag for the guy's life. And not only him, not only him, he was beating me up. I would go out, look for a job. All the jobs I applied to, I was qualified. But the first thing I was being told is there's going to be an exchange. It's not money exchange, it's my body for the job. And you can't do that. How many people are you going to see? And you see, right now, it's not only us women who are being affected by that. Also men are getting affected by that. Now, I was getting all that. You have to do this for me to do that. You come home and you talk to the guy and you're telling him, this and this is happening. And the only thing I would be told over and over again is that, you know what? You're ugly, you're dark, you're thick. I wish you could bleach yourself. You're the most useless woman I know. And for 4 years, I would wake up in the morning, look at myself in the mirror, remember all the words my mom would tell me, my sister would tell me, my bosses would tell me. And this is one person I have looked at for the rest of my life. is telling me I'm the worst mistake in his life, I'm ugly, and that is the only thing I'll tell myself. Well, then you're ugly, you're worse, you're a mistake, there's nothing good that can come out of it. And that was like, it was my daily verse. And I even lost hope with God. Because being in that environment, and the reason I'm telling you this is that in as much as we are believers, believe in God. That is the first person you need to believe, just like your mother said, believe in God. Do everything to please God and not human. I suffered even in the hands of men of God and women of God. It was, for me, it felt like a mockery. But right now, I understand the end goal. I understand the end process. We always say trust the process. But the process, we have never been told how the process looks like. We've never been told the end goal. You know the end goal, that you're going through that goal, but you don't know what happens between here and that goal. So when things began getting hard, I would pray and ask God, I'm being violated here. Sexually abused. You can imagine your own fiancé telling you the only thing you do that is you satisfying me well, and nothing else. And every other thing, no happy. So I tried looking for a job for the longest time. So I couldn't sleep. I still suffer from insomnia because of work. But at that time, I could not sleep naturally, literally, because you're sleeping, you don't have food, you can't pay your rent. Every now and then, my house was always being locked. I would sleep at the rooftop. And when I went for counseling, I remembered one thing the lady told me. They did an assessment, and I was at 39 or 40. Then they told me, you know what? You just need to start taking on antidepressants, the anti-anxiety pills, and then we see how life is going to be. And I couldn't afford counseling. It was 2,500 per session. And you can imagine I cannot afford even 10 shillings. So when they gave me the first prescription, for the first time I felt comfort. So instead of taking 1 or 2, I used to take 4. Now the 4 would make me sleep for the next 6 hours. And then I would wake up, take another 4, and then sleep. Then wake up. As time went by, I realized I started becoming suicidal. And I found joy in suicide. I literally found joy in it. That was the only thing that really mattered. And I didn't know that the pills was what was killing me. I started foaming on my mouth. Every now and then I would foam. I would have panic attacks on the streets. I would cry literally. I would be there crying. I would have anxiety, and I hated beautiful. I would get into a room like this. I see the way you hold beautiful, and the only thing that I would feel was hatred. Why? Because I was meant to believe I am useless. I was meant to believe I am worthless. So I would ask myself, why is she this beautiful and I'm not? Why is she so successful and I'm not? And I would tell God, probably you had put me, you know, like the way people say God puts you somewhere for a reason. So I was like, God, you had placed me here for a reason, to show that even you, God, can make a mistake. God never makes a mistake. But I was like, God, you have placed me there to understand that I am a mistake. And every single time I would walk out, when people are seeing light, I would take a step outside, but I would just see darkness. That was the only thing I would see, darkness. And I would not understand anything. I wouldn't afford even a mere party. It was a luxury. I could not eat any meal, it was a luxury. But I thank God for it, because I got to learn where I'm supposed to be, the people I'm supposed to have. So many times we look at ourselves as women and we feel like you're not capable enough, you're not good enough. Who said we are not good enough? There are times that human beings or people dictate how you should live your life, the kind of course you should do. I remember when I wanted to start doing courses, someone told me to do the computer science because it has less women, it's lucrative. Somebody else told me to do business management. Another person told me to do nursing. And I was there not understanding what do I want to do. So I decided to experiment. I started now with that computer networking. Then I dropped, and then I did business management. I realized this is what I want. And then I did sales and marketing. But on top of that, all this was because I was told you're not good enough. And everyone had a right or rather a say over my life. So as time went by, I had to be in the same relationship for 6 years. Reason being, the person was giving me 200. And the 200 meant so much to me. That was money from house, electricity, and 40 shillings going to town to and fro. I tried looking for them. Despite having those certificates, I literally tried looking for a job, but I did not get a job. So I would go out, get anxiety, panic attacks in town, come back, cry, take my pills, sleep, wake up. That was my dream. Literally, it was my dream. So at some point, I started asking God. The first time I tried dying by suicide is that I threw myself in a cabin vehicle on Kenneth Avenue. So when I threw myself there, this other person who was behind me pushed me completely. So I went on the other side, and being that I looked so composed, nobody thought that I wanted to commit suicide. So I told the guy, I didn't sit. I just got shot. And he was like, okay, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay, thank you for saying that. But I was like, hey God, I have failed in everything, even killing myself for failure. I said no. Now, the second time again, and nobody should try this. Like the second time, I tried drinking Jeep. And I called a friend doctor, and I was asking him, if someone drinks Jeep, what would happen? He said, it will sanitize your life and you go to heaven. Jokingly. And I said, okay, let me wait. So I slept, thinking that I would wake up in hell, because definitely I'm committed suicide. I woke up in my bed and I'm like, okay, so I'm still here. I said, okay, no. The third time again, I was on Himadi Street. And I pretended to be so much on my phone. Again, I went on a running bus, KBS, and then this other guy pulled me again. And even the driver told him, you've done a good thing. And he looked at me and he was like, Maribel, no, he didn't even know my name. He was like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. It's just that I was on phone and I got this shocking message and I didn't know what to do. And he said, okay, can I buy you lunch? I actually said yes because I hadn't eaten for 5 days, almost a week. I was like, yes. So we ate and I'm looking for, like, one thing about people who suffer from depression, it's that they become extreme of what they do or they lock themselves out. So I was in between. If I have to dress up going out, I would dress very well, do makeup very well. But then, at that time, I really loved doing makeup to cover my shoulders so that nobody would know. So we go there, eat, and it's like, are you okay? I'm fine. No, the last time, I remember was in 2019, July. I had a miscarriage, that the same year, 2019. And before the miscarriage, one thing I never tell people in forum, and it was the first time also my mom heard about it. And this reminds you when Dr. Margaret said, live your life, do it your own way. I remember I was asked why work with young single mothers. And for me, my reason was I almost became a single mother. I lost the pregnancy in 5 months because the guy said he's not ready. That was the second pregnancy. The guy said he's not ready to be a father. And I asked him, now, if you're not ready to be a father, how are we going to handle this? But I always say, I will not say by bad luck, but God knows why it had to happen. The antidepressants I was taking was literally making my system weak, so I couldn't carry the pregnancy. And I miscarried for a whole week. I was on oxygen because now my whole system was messed up. But before that, in 2017, I got pregnant for the same guy. And I remember he told me to make a decision, either my life or I abort. And I told him, you know what, I have made a covenant with God. The day I ever abort, I'll die. And he said, no, prepare yourself to die. And I said, nah, it's okay, I'll raise the baby. He came back with his friends 2 days later, and they gave me the pills at knife point. I have to say, they only said black point. And he told me, if you don't, I'll stab you. You lose the baby, probably you lose your life. And one thing that is going to happen is my parents are very guilty. I cannot be arrested. They will only pay the judge and everything into case of that, so without doing that. And actually, I had to weigh options, but of course it was true. And his parents were going to pay. So who's going to close that at me? So I took the bills. I never saw the guy until after 1 month. He came back, apologized, but because of 200. And that's why I tell people, before you judge women in domestic violent marriages, you need to understand, are they self-sustainable if they leave that marriage? Are we offering them a solution? Before we start running around, yelling, judging them, are we able to give them a solution? I stand for that. I'm against it completely because I have lived it for 7 years. But before we remove them there, have we found a solution? Do we understand their pain? We as women, do we know why they're there? So for me, it was the 200. But it was always 227 shillings. It meant life to me. So I had to do it. Now the second time I'm here, I'm pregnant. I cannot carry the pregnancy. My life is at risk. So I was taken to Nairobi Women and I was told, you know what? If you continue carrying it, you're going to die. But as of now, you're already bleeding, so we have to clean you. And I said, okay. So when we were done, I could not survive, not breathe. I was put on oxygen for a whole week. And after that, 1 week, the guy was asked to come and pick me, but he refused. So I had to discharge myself, went to the house where the parents had given us. And I remember when I was in that house, the guy would not come back early because I can't cook, I can't do anything. So I was taking the antibiotics, sleeping without food. He would come back and tell me, I am the worst mistake he has ever made. Even introducing me to the family because the family became very close to me. So he said, I am the worst, you're the worst mistake I've ever made in my life. And all that drawn to me. And I remembered my childhood. I had childhood trauma that I've never healed. So I remembered my childhood trauma, employment, failures and everything. And I'm like, at least this girl has been telling me for quite some time that I am ugly, I am this and that. He even made me try to bleach for some time. But I'm like, I am the worst mistake. And I was like, yes, that's why I feel. So I went home, stayed in my house, and I would be locked. When the agent would come to knock them, I would tell them just lock me inside. And I would talk to a few friends who were not even friends, strangers, who would pay for my rent. And there's someone who also paid for my therapy. So when I started therapy. But when I'm seated in that house, I would tell God, what are you trying to do? Because many times people tell me, you know what, God is trying to transform your life. You're gonna heal the hearts of a lot of wounded people. And I'm like, oh man, if me, I'm a failed project. If there's anything that God has ever failed in, it's me. And I wore that crown perfectly well. And I remember in June, it was June 5th. I remember exactly a whole week. I sent a friend of mine to get me the antidepressant. It was a Metropine. She brought them. And the chemist lady was saying, I talked to your friend because she's taking a lot of these pills and it's not good. She needs now to find a solution. And when she came, she started talking, and telling me how life is good, how I shouldn't be worried, things will change. And I was looking at her and smiling, and she thought I was listening. I was actually smiling because that was my last thing. You know, I knew very well one thing about this drug, and I tell people every single time, whether you're depressed or not, never. Don't even take sleeping pills. Doctors prescribe sleeping pills for people who are suffering from insomnia, but don't take them. Go the natural way. Work out, drink sleeping cheese and all that, but don't go for those drugs because they are what kill us. So when she was talking, I knew very well I was gonna take all the drugs. Within 3 hours, I'll be a vegetable, and they cannot reverse the process, and I'll be gone. So she was talking and I was smiling. And then she left and went and spoke to the sister. The sister is a reverend. So when she went to her place, the sister came and she grabbed me. I was seated on the floor. She grabbed me and started praying for me. And she prayed. And when she was praying, I was mocking her prayer. She was just praying, but in my head, I was like, this is zero working. Once you're done, you can leave. So she left. And I remember I said my last prayer. I told God, listen, my life has been a mess for the past 6 years. It has been a mess. I have made mockery of you, my family, and I'm just, a failed project. So today, if I die, my life is not. Because you said you'll make me great, but there's no greatness in it's failure. So if you want me to be your daughter, you will say no. If not, me, I'm done. So I removed all the toys, and when I was about to take it, I remember a friend of mine, an old friend of mine, was a pastor, called me. And when he called me, I had lost everyone's number because my phone used to be broken, laptop, everything. The girl would break things while beating me up. Or other times he would strangle me. So I had a cabal. When he called, I didn't even know who it was. So he said, I've just been instructed. I'm on my way to church. I know I'm on my way home to Tangela, but I've been instructed to call you. Now that's who has instructed you to call. And he said, God has just spoken to me right to call you and tell you he loves you so much. Forgive him and don't take what you're about. And I asked him, what do I want to take? He said, I don't know, but whatever you have in your hands, don't take it. That is when I believe miracles do exist. So he said, don't take it. And I looked at myself in that I was staying a very tiny house. I was staying a bit sick. So I looked at my house. I was like, this house can't even have a camera because even cockroaches were not surviving. You don't even have food. You see, cockroaches cannot survive, mosquitoes cannot survive. I was like, yo, what are you even saying? Then he said, no. God says you should forgive him, forgive yourself, forgive everyone who has wounded you, because it's going to use you to transform somebody's life. I'm like, if I don't know, if God wants to heal me, or if he wants me to forgive him, let him do it himself. And he said, give me a minute. So I continued chatting with them. And I told God, listen, if you heal me naturally, because I can't afford therapy, and these antidepressants, I would literally sit like this and I would form in my mouth because it became part of my system. I told him, look at me, I get anxiety attacks, I get panic attacks, I scream. Literally, I would scream even in my own house. I would see things that don't even exist. I told him, you have to change me, you have to heal me. And the first time I stepped out not because I hate networking. So I'm getting to learn more about networking. So the first time I stepped out, after that very day, it was 2 days later, I told him, you know what? I'm going to try to network, but you need to solve my problem. So I started networking not because of wanting to talk to people. I started networking because of food. You know, like the way you can come for this function and their food, I was tired of eating Githeri. Githeri was my usual meal. Each time I would get cash, I would buy a whole week, 100 for. I would go to Kawangware, buy for a whole week. So I was saying, but me, I'm tired. So the stewards became my friend, rather than waiters. So I would go, we've eaten. I never used to miss carrying my carry-on. If a biotic, all the food leftovers, literally, I would go with them. And even I would carry, I would tell people, and I tell them they don't believe, even tissues. I would carry them because I would not afford tissues. So I would carry them and go with them home. I would have food for a whole week until this fateful day that I went for this function and there was no food. And there was no bottle. And I had 100 bob. Hey, that 100 bob was my transport going and coming back. But on top of that, I knew I would get food here. So I would carry food for that day and a week. And there was no food, there was no water. It was just dispenser. So I said, maybe fish. But I remember those times I would tell God, send me people. And that's why it's very important. Not because when you look at someone on social media, on TV, and you feel like this person can be your mentor, no. Pray. Ask God to send someone your way. Even when you face a here is time, ask God to send the right people your way. So I kept on praying and telling God, you know what, you need to send someone who will see beyond my best. Because nobody believes in me. And you know, each and every family has its own ups and downs. So even my own family members never believe in me. So I was like, send someone. Now I go to this function, the guy is talking, he's teaching us on marketing and everything. And when he was teaching us, I remember I went and spoke to him and I told him, you know what, me, I'm a mess. This is my company. Hopefully I've closed my company. I want actually to sell it for rent today. At least I pay my rent. You know, that is what mental health does when you have a limited mindset. You don't see value in yourself. You don't see value in the things you do. So I told him, I'm selling it for 20,000. And he said, no, we're going to transform it. And I said, you don't know me. He said, I don't know you, but God knows you. And he literally started transforming my company, started transforming my own life, and started transforming everything about me. In that, one thing about my seniors have said that I don't know if everyone picks on it, and the reason that's why I didn't even want to go into details about mental health is because they have covered it indirectly. It's one thing. We hate ourselves. We look down on ourselves. We undervalue ourselves. So when somebody else began seeing value in me, I asked myself, if this person is seeing value in me, it means I am capable of achieving something greater than I think I am. So I started stepping out, started speaking. My mom started telling me, you know, because I'm a pastor, you're embarrassing me, telling people you're working in second service, because you got pregnant, they will not believe in you anymore. I was like, Mom, this is my story. There are a lot of women, there are a lot of young girls who are going through all this, but they don't know what to do. They can't speak about it because we are judging them as a society. So I will tell my story the way it is, and I will want to. I will tell them it is not us who dictate how we should be, it is God. If God didn't want you to be a single mother, He has the ability to stop. But He never stopped. He let you be there. If God didn't stop you to become an engineer, it means He has that you have that dream. The only thing we do is that we let the external forces dictate who we are. And that's when Engineer Margaret said, do it your own way. When I started becoming vocal, when drinks started growing, when people started noticing everything that I do and everything we do, a lot of people started telling me, you know what, Mary, I cannot be vocal because of this and this, I cannot comment on your post on LinkedIn because of that and this and that. And I was like, it's okay, that is you, but this is me. And I dictate how I'm supposed to live it. I dictate how I'm supposed to go about it. And let me tell you 3 things that are so important that it will sum up about mental health, even for those who are suffering with depression, anxiety, insecurity, and they don't want to talk about it. 3 things that are so important. Number 1, get a mentor. And let it not be someone you woke up and beat. No. Pray. Tell God to send someone who will see things the way God sees, things that you cannot see. Number 2, get a coach. Someone who will train you so well in what you do. And be willing to learn. Be willing to sit down there and listen. Number 3, get a therapist. We normally say they are shrinks, but they are not. You might feel uncomfortable to come and talk to me about your story because I'm your friend. You feel like I judge you. No. Get someone who will go speak to them freely. And they will see your problem in a different aspect. They will not see your problem the way you see your problem. There are many things we look at them and we feel like they are problems, but they are not problems. They're just things that we built in our own heads, in our own minds. We feel like, I cannot take this step. Lastly, never look at yourself as a woman. Yes, we are beautiful women, but number 1, you view yourself as a human being. If you view yourself as a human being, you will get into any space, you will interact with anyone, and even when people undermine you, you will never put it in your heart. Remember, it doesn't matter. What affects us is how we reacted after it. I might tell you you're ugly, I don't know you. In as much as I tell you you're ugly, it is you who knows yourself better. Are you ugly? No. So why should you feel undermined by that? If someone tells you you're not capable of doing this, it is them who are dictating their own strength on you. But are you capable of doing it? Yes. Try once, try twice, try 3 times. You fail, but I always say, you are not failing. You are only learning ways of how to do it. And I tell people, rejection is not a bad thing, it's just a projection. If I wasn't rejected all these times, I wouldn't have known where I need to be, how I need to handle it, and where I'm supposed to be, and the people I'm supposed to associate. If I wasn't rejected, I wouldn't be here today. Probably I would be doing something else outside there. And I would say another thing, God answers our prayers at His own time, not our own time. Because the life I'm living right now is the life I have lived in 2017, 2016, and 2018. If God would have answered it then, I'll be there. Or trust you me, I'll be a different story. I wouldn't be humble. I would feel like the whole world revolves around me. I wouldn't be willing to help someone. But when I was going through all this, God was also shaping my character. So when you are going through something, look at what you need to learn. What are you being told? Where are you being directed or redirected? So don't take every challenge so dearly to your heart. Life is very simple. Sit down, dictate your life, how you want to live it, as long as it's in line with God. And never, ever, ever kill your dreams. The moment you dream about something that you know it's impossible, it is a dream from God. Because if everything is possible, how are we going to live that life? You and I can never be same. And I always say we were never called to be average. So if you feel like it is possible that it is so small that you're not going to invest about it, then that is not your life. I always say life is full of the impossibilities that come to possibilities. She was the only black woman, and a female for that matter. If she would have looked at it and felt like this is impossible, I cannot do it, or this is very much possible, I can do it, she wouldn't have built her life on it. That is her pride. She's wearing her crown. They are all wearing their crowns. We are all wearing our crowns. So when you feel like this dream is too big for me to achieve, don't let it beat you up. And never ever depression, anxiety, panic attack, bipolar and schizophrenia is more unknown, but things like depression and anxiety attacks, they only happen to us because we allow them to happen. I was sharing with Brenda as I conclude is that for the past 4 months I've seen her with Gary. They closed down my business. They had given me a huge amount to pay as an incentive, which was very important. And one thing that I was so proud of is that I never drifted back into depression. Because a lot of people who were in the same situation, a lot of them suffered depression. And I was very proud that I never ever drifted into it. Why? I analyzed it and I looked at it and I was like, they have to make money. Do I have to lose my mind because of them? No. I have to speak up. I have to tell them, this and this with me is not right. Are they willing to listen to me? No. So how do I handle it? I told myself, I'm going to do everything within my means possible to sort out with Gary, then get back to my normal life. And I did. And a lot of people ask me, how did you survive? Why I learned to leave external things to the external environment. And every day speak to yourself. Put your hands in your head and declare upon yourself. Speak that great destiny that you want to live. Be the first in your field. It feels so nice to be the first in your field. It is. The other day I was mentored of 50 women in ERP, and I didn't even notice I was the only black woman and the only African. Out of 1,000 people who were nominated, I was among them. In fact, we never even reached your 50, we were only 15. And I looked at it and I was like, there's still more I can do. So I always say, one day, probably I'll be the top richest woman, or rather, wealthiest woman in Africa. It's possible. Why? I don't let other people tell me what is not possible, what is impossible. No. I dictate my own self and do it according to your own terms and your ways. Thank you.
Question? Good afternoon. My name is Mary Naura, and towards your journey on healing, prayer was a major factor around it. But I would love to know, apart from prayers, what else did you do to realize yourself at next journey?
Now that is a very interesting question when you mentioned prayer. There's one thing we make a mistake as Christians when it comes to prayer. We always focus so much on prayer and you don't do the work. we say faith without action is useless. So when I was busy praying, I made a relationship between me and God. And I told him, yo, how can I tell people? You see the way we pray? We say God is our Father, is our friend. So at times you want to shout, scream, and just go sit down and tell him what you desire and how you want to do it. And go out there. I feared networking so much. But when I started doing it, I was praying, I was posting what I was going through on LinkedIn as a story. I would just inspire other people. I was taking my papers out there, looking for businesses, looking for jobs. And one thing I realized was that when I'm told no, it's okay. You see, we all fear getting no. I still fear getting no. But when it's a no, it's okay. It means there's another yes coming at the end of it all. So what are you learning from this no? Now, another thing was that I managed to get people who were not my friends. Because you know, friends will always guide you. Some friends will guide you. The right friends will stay by you, will stand by you. So I started speaking to different people. People who I have seen their way ahead of me. Someone who is where I would desire to be. So I would just book an appointment, show up. If probably the person gives me an appointment in town, in a restaurant, I try my best to just get money to pay for tea. So that this person can see the value of me sitting with them. And I would listen to what they tell me. There are times you will not like what they say. There are times you will be told this is not the right thing for you to do this and that. Do it at this time. And as being human beings, you feel like I really am there. You don't want to do it. Just take the advice. Do what you're able to do. I would write it down. Number 3, in as much as I was praying, I decided not to surround myself with a positive environment. Your environment matters. Your environment dictates who you are and who you want to be. So my environment mattered the most. I started associating with different people. All those other people who used to say, I can't. I started changing them. Even where I used to go, even the restaurant I would sit. I remember by that time I was staying in Kawangware. And being a slum, one thing you will know, you will learn about slum is that people will always speak according to their own local mindset. When you tell someone, you know, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, they will say it is not possible. So I decided to get out of that environment. Started associating with people who I wanted to be like them. And I remember when I started doing that, even my own vision changed. Literally, my vision changed and what I wanted to do. And when I even started out, this person I met during that session became my mentor. I remember very well, every now and then he also speak life to me. And I would note down every single time. I started reading more about people. I hated reading. I started reading books. Reading books, listening to videos, following up people that are great and all that, and it worked. So if you can read books, you read a lot of books. And if you're not able to read books, you struggle with it, listen to a lot of podcasts or audience videos, you will say to it. It will build you yourself. And before you know it, they'll always take probably you will take 3 months or 6 months to heal. No. And remember, last week, you're the one who dictates your own life. You're the one who lets somebody, a stranger, to speak in your mind, rather to speak in your head, or rather another stranger to live randomly in your head. So I started declaring, reading, and following the right
I'm sorry. I don't have them, I don't know where I'm after them. You're saying you speak to people who you want to be like, right? But you're not like that yet, right? And you also say that friendships are based on value. So when you're networking with people who are better than you don't have that value, right? You'd rather on their level. So how do you go about it? How do you go about forming that?
now. The most important thing, how do you form such friendship? There are a lot of networking events that are posted online. You go. But one second, sorry, thank you very for reminding me, is understanding your value proposition. I ask a lot of people, what is your value proposition? And a lot of people assume value proposition is based on money. It is not based on money. What can you do for me as a mentor? How can I bring value to you? How can you bring value to you? It's now you to understand being a young engineer or being a young marketer. How can you become of value to me? So once you learn your value proposition, it becomes easy for you to learn from it. And now, another thing now, you've asked a question now with the friends. You look at your friends. Are they making value? Are they adding value for them? Or are you team gossip? If it is money gossip, it's okay. I always say money gossip is how are we going to invest? How are we going to transform our lives? What are we going to do? But if it's gossiping, you're gossiping somebody else, the way she looks, the way she dresses, this and that, no. We are not adding value. At times you might get to have over 1,000 contacts. But if you're in trouble today, how many people are going to show up? Is it one or two? You've gone through this. How many people are willing to stand up for you? A lot of people suffer from depression because of even friends. And these people you can learn from. When Engineer Margaret said that she's always in her room, yes, up here it's lonely. I experienced that a lot. But people who are working with her, if they're able to understand the value she has and position themselves to learn and follow her footsteps, trust you me, in the next 5 years or 10 years, they will sit with her in the same position. Why? Because they're able to learn and tap into the value. But majority of us, the young people, when you look at Dr. Wala, she's up there, she's doing something great. What do you want to do? You want to compete with her. It's never about competition. It's about learning. And that's why we always say, trust the process. Follow the footsteps of the person you want to be with and associate yourself with the people who share the same values. I hope that answers it.
I just wanted to make a comment. It's a very powerful presentation. I was at the Canadian Embassy 2 days ago. We were mentoring, we brought in all professionals to mentor young professionals like yourself. And one lady in particular really struck me. She was doing aviation, and in the financial, these are where you're buying planes, and you don't see women, little women in that sector. Anyway, she's young girl, or young then, she experienced a lot of sexual harassment and had nobody to help her. And I'm talking about the big aviation, I won't have to name the companies. And I asked her, I said, but what did HR do for you? And this is where Engineer Margaret, when you said that even though I may close the door, you went out and batted for women who were experiencing problems. This lady left a field that she loved to go into some business management, and she was crying in front of us. And we're hoping, me and somebody else, we're trying to see if we can help somehow bring her back. I'm not in aviation, but we fly a lot, so we have some contacts. How we can bring her back. What I'm saying is, do not lose yourselves. Do not leave a career because of some boss or some whatever. If it means leaving a company in order for you to pursue, I'd much rather you do that than just throw in the towel and move on. Lastly, for those of you who work in the field, and the field is very different from an office. Office is much more structured. When it comes to field work, men have silver tongues. They're fantastic. You maybe one or two, they make you feel you're the best thing that ever came, the best thing from sliced bread. You're the best looking woman, everybody stops. But I'm telling you, you're just competition. Because when the next person comes, they're singing the same song. So what I'm saying is when you know who you are, you're not tricked into that thing. You made it very clear, my name is Elizabeth, I'm here to do my job. Anything else, I'm not going to entertain. I'm very strict. So don't say, oh, because I'm 20-something and my boss is whatever. You don't have to be rude, but always have that instilled. And if you still don't have that confidence, go to somebody like an engineer, Margaret. Go to her and say, look, I'm having problems in the field, or whatever, can you help me? Leave you need sugar. Okay? So don't let anyone deter you from your dreams, and don't drop your dreams because of anyone. And lastly, when you have a vision, especially for you going for your entrepreneurs, when you have a vision, do not share your vision with someone else. And I think my engineer Marcus, no, even a doctor, he said yes. We all want to go out, yeah, but this, and sometimes with the husband, or sometimes with the family, and you think everybody is on the same page as you, and then you realize that they're actually dumping on you. They're not really there for you. You understand? It's not their fault. It is your vision, it's not their vision. Okay? So you just stick with your vision, do what you need to do, and also don't open your mouth too much about what your vision is all about. Thank you.
And just to also add on what she said in terms of vision. Yes, your vision is yours. For me, if I tell you that none of my family members supported it, they later supported it just 2 years ago. And on top of that, I had different stories about myself from family. We never choose our family, but we choose our friends. We choose how to act and react to it. Hide your vision. Carry it so dearly to yourself. Let your vision speak out for yourself after you've achieved it. We are human beings, we want to post it on social media, we want to tell everyone, we want to do it on TikTok. Trust you me. There are things about myself I never say, I never post it. And when people ask me, I tell them, go back to the 90s, 70s, 80s, 60s. Did we have Facebook? No. Did we have Twitter? No. So why do you want to know about it? And there are those who will say you're mean, but you're not mean. Something that you love, treasure it. You can never see someone walking with expensive gold everywhere, telling people this is gold, this is gold. They hide it. So your vision is your gold, hide it. Your family is your gold, hide it. Not everyone deserves to know about you. Give your enemies their bragging rights to discuss different things. They confuse themselves, it will not affect you.
Thank you so much. I don't think you're going to add anything else other than to tell us that I know Oliver is going to be posting the social media handle where you can tag us. Please remember to tag all of us and to use the hashtag that is women in STEM, diversity in STEM, the inclusion in STEM, then women in STEM leadership. So as we head out for lunch, before we go for lunch, we're having a photo session. We did not have it when we started. So we're going to be having a photo session that is with all of us. We're going to be having it here. And then afterwards, outside, we're going to be having each speaker. We're going to be having their own photo session. And then all the speakers together, the speakers with the organizers. Then we have everyone. I think that's why here at the front, we're going to be having all of us with the speakers at the front seated. And then after that is done, then we're going to be having, the one that all of us would like to have. So that will take us approximately 10 minutes, hopefully, and then we shall go for lunch. But remember, please